Let's do some review problems about chords, angles, and arcs. Let's start with this problem, number 1 here. It tells us here that if we want to find x here, and we know that these two chords are congruent, what we know is that these arcs then are congruent. So we can set the 10x plus 9 here, 10x plus 9, equal to this 8x plus 23, using the fact that congruent chords mean congruent arcs. Now we can solve for x. Subtract 8x from both sides. Subtract 9 from both sides. Divide by 2, and you get x equal to 7 for this first one. Now this next problem involves some information about tangents. Tangents are important to realize that when we have a tangent, it is perpendicular to the radius if we draw the radius to the point of tangency. So we want to find what the radius is here. So let's draw a radius here. And I'm going to call that value x. That's what we're trying to find. We could call it r, we could call it y, whatever we choose. Now this length from here, this point, to this point is 15. We know that this is also a radius, so that's going to be equal to x. So let's go ahead and set up, since this is perpendicular, we've got a right triangle. Let's use the Pythagorean theorem. We've got that 20 squared plus my x squared, those are the two legs, is going to equal this whole length here is x plus 15. So we've got to square the entire side there that's a hypotenuse. Now we got to do a little bit of algebra to review. First of all, 20 squared is just 400 plus x squared. Over here, x plus 15, we're going to multiply that out. So when we do that, we do our double distributive. So we distribute through the x to the x, and we get x squared. The x to the 15, and we get 15x. The 15 to the x here, and we get another 15x. And then 15 times 15 gives me a 225. Now we take those, and we're going to go ahead and simplify. So this 400 plus x squared, so this step hasn't changed on this side, is going to equal x squared plus 15x plus 15x, that's 30x when I combine the like terms, plus 225. Now, if you look at this, I've got an x squared on both sides, so when I bring them together and subtract x squared, it's going to be gone. So I get, when I subtract x squared from both sides, 400 equals 30x plus 225. Let's subtract 225 from both sides. So you get 30x equal to 175 when I subtract those. And now when I divide both sides by 30, I get x approximately equal to about 5.83 repeating. Actually, exactly that. So there's my solution, 5.8 and then 3 repeating. So that's how you do these two problems. Let's go ahead and review a couple other types of problems. What I'd like you to do is I'd like you to pause the video and I'd like you to try these two. See if you can set them up and solve them. Now that you've tried it, let's go ahead and do both of them together. See how you did. So this first one, what I got to recognize is that I've got two arcs and I've got interior angles. Now remember my formula for the interior of a circle when I have an angle is that I add the arcs, but it equals half. If you take half of the sum of those arcs, it equals this interior central angle. So I'm going to call this angle 1. Okay? Notice that's not x, so I'll find 1 first and then I'll apply it to x. So the measure of angle 1, the angle, is equal to half the sum of the two arcs, 72 plus 40. So I get the measure of angle 1 equals half of 72 plus 40, that gives me 112. So when I take half of that, I get 56. Now that's the measure of angle 1. What we want to find is we want to find the measure of x there. Well, notice x and 1 are supplementary. They're right next to each other. They form 180 degrees. So x is going to equal 180 minus the 56. And if I subtract those two, I get 124 for x, for my angle. Make that degrees. So that's how you find that angle that's on the inside of the circle. Now this one is on the outside. The outside is you take that angle is going to be half of the difference of the two arcs. The problem is we don't know this arc, but notice since these are tangents, a whole circle is 360, so this arc here is just going to be 360 minus the 240 that I know, and that gives me 120 for that arc. So I now know both arcs, so I can say that x equals 1/2 the difference of the arcs, the larger one minus the smaller one. That gives me half of 120, which equals 60 degrees for that angle. So that's how you find that one. So in review, you want to take and you want to relate angles, arcs, and also the chords inside the circles together to use our formulas to solve problems.